To the seasoned traveler of the stars, a race who lives daily with access to a universe's library of information, without ever making use of it, is more primitive than a race who has yet to discover fire. So simple a thing, the discovery of fire, yet so immense, so revolutionary the changes it brings. So simple a thing, the discovery of God. Awakening the sensitivity that allows you to access universal information requires a flip of thinking. It requires that you look from above, rather than from below. It requires an accurate knowledge of self. Yet you cannot know yourself until your images of self are dissolved, and only love is capable of that dissolution. Feel love being offered to you from the life that rises in your veins. Feel love being offered to you in the sunlight that shines upon your home, in the rains that fall upon the fields that provide your grains, in the eyes of a child, partner, or friend. The love available to you in each moment is more than enough to dissolve the subtle ties that bind you in illusion. You are worthy, you are deserving of that love. Relaxing again into the fields of pure perception, that glow as God's awareness, releasing attachment to human knowledge, both personal and collective, letting go of favored concepts, images, and beliefs. These are steps in a psychological process that each person must move through in the course of awakening. This process allows your spirit world's sensitivity to blossom. It causes you to understand from a new perspective, both your individuality, and the whole of which you are a part. It does not destroy or diminish your ego, it merely washes away the illusions that have made your ego miserable. It releases your understanding of self from the bonds of gravity that hold it in struggle and fear. For if your ego is a reflection of spirit, then even at its core, your ego is spirit. It is distinct from spirit as the image in a mirror is distinct from the object being reflected, but without the one there would not be the other. When the reflective glass of your material biology, and your understanding of it, is clear and clean, both ego and spirit benefit from a world perceived anew. Your spirit draws its first sense of identity from the high-frequency energies of the constellation of love. Your ego draws its first sense of identity from the slower, materially attractive frequencies in the constellation of truth. Yet both constellations exist in the same sea of eternal being, and in a healthy state both spirit and ego perform their respective roles equally centered in God. The psychological process leading to awakening, though it can be described in many ways, is fundamentally a process of identity shift from a linguistically defined sense of self, rooted in your ego, and an exaggerated sense of your vulnerability, to a sense of identity, rooted in the unified field of consciousness, that lies behind and within all individuality. During the process, your sense of self blossoms into an accurate awareness of who you are. This transformed awareness includes your former sense of being one among many, but it also includes an awareness of a reality greater than the ever-changing worlds of form, an awareness rooted in the singularity of eternal being, from which all individuality unfolds. As you awaken into this awareness, you know yourself simultaneously as one among many, and as one at the source of many. It is impossible to be truly individual without this awareness. Without this awareness, you are a latent possibility, a programmed product of human culture. You are not truly yourself. You are certainly not incarnate in any literal sense of the term. Remember, your choices are always honored. If you prefer an image to reality, the image is what you experience. The psychological process is an initiation of sorts, a rite of passage. It demonstrates your willingness to turn away from a language-based understanding of reality and to restore your trust in reality itself, in the eternal being at the source of your life. It requires courage. You must leap naked into eternity's promise, stripped of the assurances of time, certain only that the vast benevolence that has given birth to this universe is more worthy of trust than the belief system deities of the historical order. The psychological process requires courage for another reason as well. To undergo it, you must be willing to accept the wonder, the power, the awesome reality of human design. No belief system requires such responsibility. On the contrary, belief systems offer to assume responsibility for you, protecting you from yourself, sheltering you beneath their many brands of dogmatic illusion. You do not have to face the truth if you hire a belief system to do it in your place. But belief systems demand a stiff price. They place a heavy tax on your energy. They siphon off the better part of your awareness. They confiscate your eternal sense of self, and lock you into a flicker of fictitiously described time. Throughout history, humankind has paid this price. The intensifying frequencies of love now make it easier for people everywhere to see what their saints and visionaries have always seen. Those who receive their impressions with the openness of a child feel an eternal consciousness seeping slowly between their thoughts. As their interest in the superficial chatter of the ego wanes, their attention turns to matters of relevance. They experience a cycle of blending, during which they learn to sustain their awareness in the eternal awareness that is growing steadily in the thought fields around the earth. Universal intelligence can then flow freely through them and into expression. Their centers of identity ride the crest of the eternal wave, at the perfect point where one being spills over into the many beings of time. As an informational cell in this awakening planetary field, the extent of your consciousness determines your range of mobility. The extent of your consciousness is limited only by your ability to love, and to embrace with your love the space around you, and all it contains. Just as the cells of a human body are woven into the life and consciousness of the body as a whole, so too are love-centered human lives entwined in the life of God. As you use human circuitry in accordance with its design, as you use it to transform the powerful bioelectric currents of terrestrial energy into cycles of life-enhancing activity on the physical plane, you will come to understand more fully the awesome capacities of the human mind. When you, eternal spirit, use your mind to gather and step down the energies of universality, focusing and channeling them into specific dimensional creation, your mind's activity is so different, its capacities enhanced so far beyond its typical historical usage, that one could say with some accuracy that it is not the same mind at all. In the emerging paradigm of the spirit, conceptual understanding is of secondary consequence. Those who function on the frequencies of love do not demand it at every step in their creative processes. Their activity is therefore able to flow freely, rapidly, unhindered by the constant need to tabulate mentally each and every detail. They understand spiritually with their hearts and tangibly with their bodies. They also understand with their minds, should they choose to slow down enough to access that mental understanding. But, as lovers often do, they frequently choose to forego such a detailed analysis. Beings who function in a state of grace are secure in the knowledge that conceptual understanding is there whenever they choose to slow into it, but they have released their addiction to the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. They no longer acquire a symbolic interpretation of each moment. Because of this, it sometimes appears to those observing through the old historical filters, that those functioning in the new paradigm are ignoring common sense. But this is never the case. The behavior of those who function in a state of grace makes perfect sense, but it is sense that is drawn from a higher frequency of awareness. Its logic is not beyond the ego's grasp, but it is of a more rapid vibration than the slower frequency logic of the ego. For the ego to understand the lightning process through which the spirit reaches a sequence of decisions, it has to break down the process and study it one frame, one step at a time. While this can be done, it is much better to experience instinctual awareness than to analyze it. The inner guidance of the life force embodies a deeper and more ancient sense, a sense common to conscious beings throughout the stars. It comes from a truly holy spirit, and is the shared property of all those who inhabit the conscious realms. It can be comprehended by those in the old paradigm, but as long as they stay within the old paradigm, they will never know its source within themselves. The word that God sends into this turning age is metaconceptual, telepathic, both more comprehensive and more specific than linguistic terms. This is the living word of which you have scriptural mention, the luminous living information that inspires those who receive it, and nurtures those who welcome it into their lives. In a literal as well as a spiritual sense, it is the staple foodstuff, the nourishment of the coming age. It flows outward from your heart to nourish you and all included in your love. It is the understanding of life itself, providing you from within a quality of individuality that will complement the world around you. The living information is inseparable from your life force. Biologically, you have experienced the animation of your life force, but you are not truly incarnate until you allow this current into your conscious awareness. Biologically, this energy is the center of your life. As you also allow it to become the center of your consciousness, your emotional realm is activated as an instrument of perception. Just as the eye is designed to sense and interpret certain frequencies as light, and the ear is designed to sense and interpret other frequencies as sound, the human emotional realm is designed to sense, and creatively interpret, the motivational, life-bringing energies that radiate throughout the universe. When you move beyond the vision prisons of historical definitions, and release your heart to love, a superbly crafted etheric antenna unfolds from the luminous envelope that surrounds your body in light. This antenna behaves like a sensitive plant. When the heart is anxious, when emotions are troubled or turbulent, it remains closed. But when the heart relaxes in love, its delicate gossamer flowers unfold, like a tree coming into bloom, providing you with a sophisticated etheric organ, designed to receive the information that circulates in the universal sea of being. The 7 flower-like discs of the etheric antenna are anchored in the glands of the endocrine system. These glands bridge spirit and matter. They are the biological receptors that translate the higher-frequency information picked up by the etheric discs, the chakras of yogic tradition, into language the nervous system can recognize. They are designed to audit ultrafine frequencies, bringing both sensory, and what some would call, extrasensory impressions into your awareness. The etheric antenna is damaged by violent emotions such as anger or hatred. It is never in any danger from outside emotions, only from your own. It can remain open for months even in the midst of violent emotion, as long as you remain calm and continue to feel love for those around you. However, when your love is withheld, your etheric antenna closes, and then there are no shortcuts. Your heart must be returned again to God, it must resume the expression of love. And even then, time is required before your etheric antenna's full sensitivity is restored. The fully activated human sensory system is synonymous with your spirit's presence, and occupies the same space. It extends beyond those portions of it whose vibratory rate is slow enough to attract the molecular structure of your nervous system. Its spatial reach extends outward from the physical body to include a larger vibratory field, of which the etheric antenna is but a part. From the spinal trunk, the branches of the nervous system reach throughout your body, nurturing the many tiny leaves that are its cells. Its uppermost branches flower into the threefold petals of your human brain. When your love extends to include enough of your world to admit the vision of eternity, you will feel its blossom-like senses unfolding, blooming to bring you more complete awareness of the multidimensional reality in which you live. Yet the fully activated human sensory system is more than just an interdimensional communication device. In miniature, it replicates in the structural pattern of its biogravitational field, the same pattern found in planetary, solar, galactic, and universal fields. Activated, as it is for all those in an awakened state, it is capable of bringing through its own miniaturized circuitry the awareness of the archangelic beings who overlight each of these spheres. Through it, incarnate ones are able to access and experience base and system of informational exchange common to all universally conscious beings, drawing upon a shared pool of wisdom, and knowing it as their own. For behind their subjective roles and specialties, all conscious entities share a common field of being. They experience the various individual foci in the sea of that being, not as others, but as features of their own universal wholeness. Just as the latticework of galactic love, which holds this cluster of stars suspended, is mirrored above in the vibrational circuitry of this solar system, and then mirrored once again in the awakening circuitry of planetary intelligence, On a smaller scale, this same basic design pattern, of eternal love, is mirrored in human biology, thus providing us with universally compatible systems, for the habitation, enjoyment, and continuing creation of these phenomenal realms.